Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to what I would call the mother of all panels. Net zero debate, regulations, and energy transition. Our distinguished panel includes Mrs. Ioanna Procopiou, founder and managing director of Prominence Shipping, and I believe also managing director of Sea Trades as well, and designated president of BIMCO, the largest dry cargo trade organization of the world. We also have with us the newly elected president of European Shipowners, from all the way from the country of lakes, Suomi Janver Ma, Mr. Mikki Koskinen. I would like to welcome him in Finnish language. Hare Koskinen, tervetuloa Capitalink Forumille. Last, he is also the CEO of the largest dry cargo operator in the Baltic, ESL. And last but not least is the guy in charge of the Liberian flag, the largest registry of the world, Mr. Alfonso Castillero. The decision for net zero has been made. The real question that we have is whether the regulatory instruments that we are deploying are aligned with the physical reality of ships, fuel, and timelines. Myself, as a moderator, I have the role to ensure that we distinguish between political intent, engineering reality, financial and environmental consequences, because ship owners operate at the intersection of all of them. So let me ask with questions. I will start with Mrs. Procopiou. Allow me to utilize first names, like in America. So, Ioanna, a prerequisite to produce green fuels, which is the backbone of decarbonization, as it appears, is the renewable sources of energy. Do we have enough today to produce the green fuels for the global fleet?
Good morning, Yanni. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, as you said, in order to have a green transition, we need to have fuels that are produced in an environmentally friendly way. Unfortunately, what happens for marine fuels is that they need much more energy in order to produce than what you get when you burn them. So let's say, I'll give you an example for ammonia. You get 5 megawatt hours per ton, but you actually require 10 to 13 megawatt hours of green electricity to produce. So it's a very inefficient method producing green fuels for the marine industry. Now going back to your question, if we have enough alternative energy, let's say if we were to replace all of the marine fuels with alternative fuels, we would need 5,170 terawatt hours of green electricity At the moment, the global supply of alternative energy, solar and wind, is 3.9 terawatt hours per year. And we have to bear in mind that it's not just shipping that is decarbonizing. So we have other industries that are competing for decarbonization, such as power generation, steel production, fertilizer production, etc. So it's a big shame that we're actually giving all our focus to decarbonizing shipping in that way, because it's 9 times more efficient and you get 9 times more CO2 reduction when you use, let's say, these alternative fuels, or this green electricity for cars on land. So in terms of capacity, going back to your question, no, we don't have enough marine alternative energy production in order to decarbonize shipping.
Thank you. This is a very important conclusion, and I would say that electrical cars today operate with electricity produced by crude oil, so with fossil fuels. So in essence, I do not see any good for the environment if that's the case. Not renewable energy, not solar panels. With, of course, there are exceptions, like the port of Long Beach, the port of Los Angeles. Now, let me go to Mikki. The German vote at IMO last October delayed the adoption of the NGF by a minimum of 1 year, or maybe it is the death of the NGF. In that case, and in absence of green fuels, should shipping go and apply innovative technology to enhance the energy efficiency of the vessels? What is the strategy in your fleet?
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here and part of this distinguished panel. A small question, but if you allow a bit wider answer to the topic, I think a few years ago, what we had on the agenda was the climate. It's not off the agenda today either, but we have other topics on the agenda as well. We have the issues with the security. We have the issues with the European competitiveness. And we should look this more broadly today. It's not only about the technology. Our company is investing into multiple renewable technologies. We've been investing into LNG-fueled ships. We have invested in battery hybrid diesel vessels. We are now investing into multi-fuel diesel methanol-fueled ships. But we know that this is not enough, and the situation is developing all the time. About the net zero framework and its impact to the development, I think what we have in Europe is in a way a good framework, because that's providing some security and safety for the investments longer term as well. Now the whole industry in shipping is slightly in a new situation, because we believe that the IMO proposal has grounded and potentially it will not refloat, and we need to rethink how all these matters will be solved going forward. It's not an easy situation, of course, but if we turn back to Europe and turn back to the renewables, more than 1/3 of the electricity in Europe already is being produced by wind power and other renewables, and the same thing is ongoing in China. Of course, as Ioanna said, there is not enough energy for the renewables in shipping for the time being, but the situation is developing positively. And I think we are gaining traction. We are moving also to the right direction. But we need to have a comprehensive, a holistic approach. The ships need to be more energy efficient. We need to utilize the latest technologies, the latest in hydrodynamics in vessels. making shipping more competitive is not against the green agenda or reducing the climate impact of shipping. And I think we can do our fair share as well without compromising the competitiveness. Then when we talk about the competitiveness, I'm a bit more concerned about the competitiveness of Europe, because if there will not be a global regulatory framework, Europe remains a highly regulated island, and this will impact negatively the competitiveness of European industries. And basically, the industries are the backbone for the demand in shipping. So this is sort of, let's open the panel with this broad explanation to the short question. Thank you.
Thank you too. Let me go to the Liberian Registry and to Alfonso. The Liberian Registry has something more than 9,000 ships, Category A at IMO, and Category A is typically consists of countries with great influence in shipping, and I'm proud to say that Greece is also a Category A because of the size of the Greek-owned vessels, maybe largest in the world. And as such, the Liberian flag gets the opinions and the impact from the regulations and from the ship owners. So what are the ship owners convey to the Liberian flag? And what is your strategy for the way forward?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John, for the question. So I need to probably step one step back, because the reason why we are facing the situation that we're all in today is just because we have not realized that this is the same thing that we do all the time. We set the dates, we set the regulation, but we don't know how to do it. But this time was too big. And when you talk to the ship owners yourself and you cut the middleman, the voice doesn't come to you disrupted. It comes to you directly from the ship owners, the one who takes the decision whether they need to invest in X technology or Y technology. And of course, we all need to understand that we as a regulator need to be a facilitator of their decisions with clarity, with certainty, so they can have clear rules of engagement when it comes to investment and how to achieve a global regulation. But the feedback we get from the ship owner typically is they don't know what's happening at the IMO, right? I'm talking about the majority of the owners. They don't understand the future of where this type of regulation, in particular the net zero, which in my point of view should be take it back to start from zero, right? And they would like to be, more involved, and they're all waiting to see which investment they have to make, on which investment they don't have to make based on availability. I don't want to talk about the molecules, because that's something that we have been speaking and talking for the last 10 years. I want to talk about what happened and what's the feedback, as you said, the way forward, and the feedback from the owners. The feedback from the owners is we need to be realistic, we need to be pragmatic, we need to work with what is available right now, and we cannot be or continue to try to insist on something that we know is not going to work. We came out with a bunch of, let's say, a regulation that it was put together in a way that it will suffice or satisfy the needs of many people. And that was basically a mental unicorn. It didn't work. In particular, with the amount of collections of the money we're referring to. The IMO will eventually become the World Bank, and that was not the idea. The IMO is a technical body, and I think the way forward here, most important than anything, is to be realistic, pragmatic, and to take the economic aspect away from it.
I will go again to Mikki, and I will focus on the European regulations. ETS penalizes because of the amount, the volume of the mass of the carbon dioxide emissions. FuelEU Maritime penalizes the type of fuel without checking compliance only from what you burn, not how much you burn. So that means that we have other means to help reducing the consumption, that is with innovative devices, energy efficiency enhancing devices. From your experience so far, do you see that happening? Where are we standing right now? Because from my interaction with shipowners, I see that the vast majority try to find a pool, to be part of the pool, because the charterers in their majority will not cover the sometimes large expenses of these devices. So what is your experience with that? And I'm including operational measures as well.
As a company, our policy is to try to pass through all the costs related to the ETS and FuelEU Maritime. And so far we've been able to do it quite successfully. But I know that there are companies who have more difficulties passing the additional cost to the customers. Of course, as European shipowners, our wish has been always that if there would have been a global regulation, then we had and we still are demanding a withdrawal of the European local regulation, and we would like to see global regulation instead of the regional one. Then potentially we need to rethink a little bit because of the realism now is not that we would have in place a global regulation by the end of the year. Technologies, how to deal with the FuelEU. I think the combination is quite difficult for the industry. Now we are facing the first year with 100% of the ETS to be paid. At the same time, we are seeing the increasing cost of the renewables because we need to comply with the FuelEU Maritime. Our company has a policy of complying, not paying the penalties, and in order to comply, you need to use compliant fuels big enough in scale. Of course, in 2030, we will see a big step change because instead of 2%, we will need to use 6% low carbon or low greenhouse gas fuels. And that will be a big change in the market because I don't think there will be enough fuel available in 2030. That will be a very important timeline for the future development. I think the key really is the lack of the fuels. And what we would need to see in European Union is the use of the ETS funds for the benefit of the shipping industry, one way or the other. Either by returning the funds and narrowing the price gap between the green fuel and the fossil fuel, or by some other means supporting the industry. Alternatively, of course, we could be discussing a possibility of reducing the amount of the ETS. But let's be realistic. I mean, the ETS is a standard in European industries. It applies all industries. But then the regulators, they should have equal treatment of different industries. And I think the shipping industry cannot accept that we are paying now 100%, but at the same time, the ETS2 for the trucking industry has been postponed by 1 year. That is just another example how we are being in a way penalized, and the others get off the hook at least for 1 year. And here we see some examples, for example, in the Mediterranean, how the trucks are again back on the roads and they are not on the ships as they are supposed to be. So these are the main problematic issues I see at the moment.
Actually, only wind-assisted propulsion has been given special recognition by the FuelEU Maritime, and other types, they don't have direct recognition, indirect by reducing the consumption. But you said something important, lack of fuels. So shipping, in essence, is charged at 10 GF for not burning fuels that do not exist. So I will ask Ioanna, even in the future, Rome was not built in one day. Are we going to have sufficient volume of fuels at reasonable price, available with a proper infrastructure in the future to satisfy the global fleet?
Thanks for your question. I'm going to go back a little bit to what my fellow panelists were saying. I have to say we're actually very lucky that the IMO didn't proceed with what they were saying about the net zero framework, because we were actually going towards the wrong direction. There is no point in polluting and paying. The IMO was focusing on alternative fuels, but there are many other ways of reducing emissions. And it's not just the promotion of specific fuels. We have operational measures that are very important that we should bear in mind, not just the alternative fuels and the production and the consumption of them. The World Bank actually published end of the year a very interesting report in 2025 that says that up to 40% of the emissions can actually be cut through efficiency alone. And that could save the industry 250 million tons of emissions with zero cost. And if you take this into savings, that equates to 220 billion US dollars in annual savings. So this is actually quite interesting, because there have been many reports that present how you can actually reduce emissions with zero cost. But I think that this is not the objective, actually. And what we see very often is the environment being used as a pretext for raising money. There is a climate urgency, everybody knows that, but we should go about it in a way that makes sense, because polluting and paying or indirect taxation of shipping doesn't work, because as you said, you're actually paying for things you cannot burn, you're being penalized. So this is actually not reducing the emissions. So we need to be mindful that there have been many reports that say that you can have the same outcomes that the net zero framework would want. Thank God it's not there anymore, but you could go up to 2043 without the use of alternative fuels, because as we've said many times, the alternative fuels are not going to be available. We're talking about 1% of alternative fuels at the moment that what we need, less than 1%, but let's be generous, 1% is what is available. Going back to your question. So I think we have to rethink why all those interesting reports and papers are not being taken into consideration. I mean, I have some ideas in mind, but there's no cost associated with them, so no one's going to be making any money. So also going back to the IMO that Alfonso was saying, unfortunately the industry was never consulted at IMO, and the Secretary General was actually quite proud that everything was going to go according to plan when we were in Cyprus in October. So I think it was a big surprise the way things went.
You're absolutely right. It was probably a very fast decision at IMO and was doomed to fail. Now, I would like to go, and the most important part is that we are not alone in this world. We have competitors, like for example, aviation. Ammonia is used in fertilizers, important for the food chain. It is not just shipping, other sectors as well. Now, my next question, maybe in the near future, will make headlines. I will ask Alfonso, who has been very vocal, explaining that the economic part of the net zero regulation should never have been included. IMO is not a bank. IMO is a technical body. Can you elaborate a little bit more, Alfonso, and explain why?
Excellent. I think what Ioanna just mentioned is exactly what I have been saying and calling out for years. The industry, and I had this conversation with the Secretary General myself. I respect Arsenio, I know him, we worked together for quite a long time, and I suggested to him, you need to talk to the real decision makers, the ship owners, the regulators. We need to be facilitators of the landscape for them to have clear rules, as I said at the beginning. But, so to your question, John, I think that the economical aspect, really, it was designed to be politically correct, but technically totally incorrect. Because what she mentioned, we all knew. It was known by everyone. But keep insisting on doing the same thing, which I get to that into a point where we like to keep doing things at the IMO the way it's been done for years, which is let's figure it out theoretically, what is good for, in this case, the environment. We all agree, and agree with Mikki as well. We need to have a global regulation. We fully agree with that, don't get me wrong. But keep insisting on things that the way the IMO has been working for years, the ballast water. I mean, every single ship owner is troubleshooting the ballast water. And the technology is not really helping at all. We do things the way it's been done for years, which is we set a rule which theoretically would work. We push everyone into a corner, say, run and do it the way we should do it, the way, am I wrong? And then we need to all understand that there is a pressure to be made on the industry to develop technologies and to come up with solutions. I get it, but this time it was too big. The IMO is not prepared. There's no infrastructure. There's no system to manage a fund that then eventually will go, by the way, at that last MEPC, we didn't even know how the fund is going to be used. So how do you expect trillions of dollars to be managed by a technical body of the UN in the way that it goes back to the people which are investing, which are the ship owners, and not to governments, which I understand that there's needs to the governments to be incorporated, but it makes no sense. And I don't think this is the way it should be done. I've been saying this for many years. And in fact, I'm also one of the proposals that we should take the tacit amendments to explicit amendments at the IMO, which will give not just the opportunity for the governments to double think and to agree on something, but also to commit. It will push the governments to talk. It will push the industry to talk. It will push the IMO to go to the root cause of it in talking to the ones who are making the decisions. So yes, I've been vocal about it, and I thought the economical aspect should have never been done there that way. We are ignoring the fuels that are available right now. We knew that there was no sufficient fuels to achieve the results that we wanted, but we still wanted to insist to continue moving forward with the regulation the way it was. So I really don't know what to expect in the next MEPC, but what I would like people to understand is that the way it is, it will not work. It will not work because it will not pass, nor it will be practicable for the ship industry.
And of course, there are ways, thank you very much, there are ways to delay adoption indefinitely. I would like to ask Ioanna, actually, are we shooting ourselves in the foot, especially at the EU? Shipping for EU is a very important, it's a pillar of our economy, which doesn't do very well these days. So with these regulations, don't we lose competitiveness for shipping? What is your opinion? I mean, we have a lot of regulations from all over the place. Like it was mentioned, it should be only one global regulation and not this fragmentation.
Who do you mean are we shooting ourselves? I don't think the industry is consulted at all. So who is we? I mean, you mean the EU?
It's the politicians in Brussels.
The politicians in Brussels, unfortunately, have a very short time horizon, so they only regulate for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they're off. So they make those rules that apply for years to come, and we have to comply with. But at the end of the day, they're not there to see the implementation. It's all promises because that gets votes. Yes, we are shooting ourselves in the foot. The average European company is small, medium enterprises. They have around 9 ships per company. So, and they are the backbone of shipping in Europe. So if we start taxing and penalizing and having no way of complying, they'll have to either consolidate or decide to do something else with their time. So I think we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Also, we were lucky enough in a way, I don't want to say lucky, but at least the war between Ukraine and Russia showed how important energy independence is. And the way you can achieve energy independence is mainly through ships, because we saw that pipelines and a lot of other means were always subject to political decisions or to terrorists trying to interfere with that. So, I mean, the war did indicate how important shipping is, and I think that's why we've seen a little bit more of a stance, more, let's say, lenient stance towards shipping in a way. But, as Mikki said, we are the only industry that is actually paying for EU ETS. So, yes, I mean, going back to your question, yes, we do shoot ourselves in the foot. And I'm going to say something that is a little bit controversial here. We've been discussing with my friend Yannick Silla here the other day. And, shipping is a global business at the end of the day. And we would ideally want global regulations to govern shipping. But the way it is going and the way that the regulations are being formed, I'm not so sure that global is better than local regulations, because at some point it might be easier to actually pass the cost to the charterer that wants to go to that place that has those strange regulations and say, okay, you want us to go to Djibouti that has a emissions trading scheme, you pay for it. So I'm not so sure that it is a bad thing to end up having local regulations, provided that they were doing such a bad job at having global regulations.
Thank you. We are getting close to the end of the time, but we continue. Please.
I would like to continue to what Ioanna said. I think, no, I liked it actually, and I would like to conclude in a way that I think the European Union, we failed at IMO, and it's the European Union that caused all the big trouble we have today. Also among our membership, there are many voices saying that we can cope with the local regulations without problems. And we can do exactly as you said. We comply, we make the customer pay, and that's it. On the other hand, it would be very good if we could build security of supply for the fuels within Europe as well, using the growing amount of the renewable electricity, for example. And we have good examples in the Nordics, how we are oversupplying wind power, for example, and that could be utilized in production of renewable fuels. We have vast resources of biogenic CO2 that could be used for the production of the new fuels. We just need a little bit push and support from the ETS funds in a way. I think where IMO really failed, and I'm also questioning myself and the industry why we did not react in time. We failed in the timeline, which was and still is clearly very unrealistic, and it's simply not possible to adapt that type of regulation in 2028. And I think that is the reality of today. It will not fly, as simple as that. But then instead of saying that it will not fly, I think the society will expect us to have a plan towards 2050. And we need to have a plan to reduce the emission from shipping as well. What Ioanna said, I think we have huge inefficiencies in the industry still. And I think we could easily shave off 20% of the energy consumption in Europe if the ports were more efficient, if we did not waste huge amount of time waiting in the ports with inefficiencies, weekends, everything. You have system faults, clearly, that are preventing us from being more efficient operationally. And operationally, basically, we've been able to achieve savings like 25% in CO2 without investing one single euro, without changing the fuel. But it's not enough. And I think the industry, we need to have a plan for 2050. And I think now, when we all are more or less realizing that the IMO plan will not fly, I think it's time to sit down and put our wise thoughts together to figure out the plan. What could be achievable? What could be a realistic plan? How we can basically become, perhaps not net zero, but at least emit a little bit less. Thank you.
Okay, we go to the last round of questions. Let me start with Alfonso. Why do you think IMO could not reach a decision on an agreement on net zero? What is your prediction for the future, if you have one?
Thank you, John. I think that the IMO should take all the proceedings and the procedures back to the basics, which is consulting to everyone or with everyone, but analyzing the realistic scenario that we have in the world. If we keep pushing things the way we want it theoretically, and as mentioned in the panel for both Mikki and Ioanna and myself, to push the industry to do the things the way we want, because we think that's the way forward, knowing that there's no actually light after in the tunnel, we will continue to fail. So my prediction is that this has to be redone. There have to be a complete re-engineering of the whole framework. I think we should call it differently now. So, the economical aspect, if any, in the future, which I don't think it should be any, it should go straight back to the people who's putting the money in, and it cannot be managed, and it should never should have been even considered to be managed by the IMO. So if you remove that out, maybe we have a possibility to allow the industry to trade by itself. We need to be technology agnostic, technology inclusive. We need to consider every single technology available, and in the future, any options that we have to reduce carbon emissions. But we can't really continue with the concept of penalizing the industry because of a fuel that the only fuel we have available is the only fuel that we will be penalized for. So the whole system needs to be, in my point of view, revisited. The whole net zero needs to be called differently. The economical aspect should be totally removed in order for us to sit on the table. You can't sit on the table with the same considerations that already failed. You need to remove the noise, the rocks that are the impediment to continue forward, and then sit down and talk. Otherwise, it won't move forward.
Very good. Thank you very much. And one of my favorite questions, a missing element of the NGF regulation is the emissions from the production and transportation of the fuel, the so-called well-to-tank emissions. So in essence, you order a vessel and you are charged for these emissions. How can you make long-term investments without knowing what is in store for you? You think it's fair? Or we should actually put the economic element as proposed by Alfonso after this is completed, after we compute these emission factors? This is for Ioanna.
I think when we want to make such huge changes in the industry, we need to look at the thing holistically. We need to have a life cycle analysis of the fuels that are being suggested, because only then will we know if something is more environmentally friendly than what we already have. Also, we need to have impact assessments. So what does it mean to cut forests and plant, up trees for biofuels? what does that do to the local regulations, et cetera? Because at the end of the day, all of this, all of the emissions, all of the goes to the same environment, the same atmosphere. So, and shipping needs long-term investment. So you cannot make an order today. Your ship's going to be delivered let's say 3 years down the line, has a life of about 20 to 25 years. So we're talking about you need a stable and regulatory framework for the next 30 years. And, you know, we keep seeing that whenever there's an IMO every meeting, they come up with more ambitious targets. So you cannot make investments like that. As you see, most people are ordering conventional ships, unfortunately or fortunately, because there is no long-term horizon, and you need to have a holistic approach. Going back to your question, we should focus also on the low-hanging fruit. If we can achieve the emissions reduction that the net zero framework would have wanted by 2043 without any real cost, why aren't we doing this? I mean, it's a shame. If we want to use the environment as a pretext, we actually have to do something for the environment. So this is what I think.
Like, for example, reducing the speed, or
there's so many things.
Weather routing, and
weather routing, carbon capture on board, the reducing of the speed, cold ironing, shore-based measures that reduce emissions, improving the fuel quality. There's a list. There's a list of things that you can do with triangulation, putting the charter into the game as well. The CII is a great metric that has the charter and the cargo in it, or should have the cargo. It doesn't have the cargo in it yet. And, you know, in order to have meaningful reductions, you need all stakeholders to play their role. It's not just the ship. You have the charter, the cargo receiver, the port, the facilities, the infrastructure. So, I mean, you need a bunch of stakeholders to play.
Thank you. And the last question, please answer to me, Mikki, with a yes or no, in the interest of time. I'm an LNG fan because LNG is technologically advanced, it's the only one. And would you order a vessel burning LNG these days?
Yes, I would, and we also have those ships in the water. But as I said earlier, we have a multi-fuel strategy. I think still it's a viable solution, and of course it depends on the capex and on the trading and all that. I mean, without knowing your question, it's difficult to commit answering yes or no, but anyway.
I would like to thank the panel for their excellent answers, and please give them a round of applause.